Boys are back every Sunday with no fail. We have no fail on this.
No fails yet.
We will have no fails on this. At some point there will be, and it's going to be a disappointing day, but we will make sure to get a podcast out.
I think it's creeping up soon, honestly, with competition season here and traveling and shit.
Yes, we may need to adjust. Yes, it probably will. It will be okay though. We might have at least two of us. Two of us might be on. And if anything, you guys get to hear my sexiest voice on the podcast.
Or you know what? I don't know. Like Dill might be at some shows too, and we could just fucking sit in a hotel room and talk, put our phones up and do it together.
100%. I could even bring this mic and just hook it up to my laptop. This one's dope.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I'm the only guy without a mic now, I guess. I didn't actually pull the trigger the other night. I forgot after we were talking.
I thought for sure you would have.
Oh, I normally do, and now I'll tell you this much: when we get off this podcast, I'm going to order a mic.
Yes. You know what?
I can't be the only guy here without a mic.
Hey, it will take you less time than it took Dillon to get a mic. It took Dillon. Me and Dillon have been recording since like August.
Okay, but he also didn't even have a computer, and guy worked off his phone and didn't have an office, so he's very productive.
Upgrading. It's a very different lifestyle. Very different lifestyle.
I was going to say, I didn't have a mic because for the first half of that since August, I didn't have a computer to hook a mic up to.
Plug an auxiliary into your phone into a mic.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Well, I've actually almost done that. So I remember I was going to go to the Arnold like 2 years ago, whenever before everything kind of happened. Because I'd never been. So I was trying to go, and I actually was going to buy two, because my podcast was starting to take off at that point. So I was like, okay, I'll buy these like mics, these little mics that I could bring around with me in case I wanted to get these small spurts and type things, like, because I was meeting a ton of people. I was going to meet a ton of people there and everything. So I was going to try to get like these small little conversations like on thing and kind of like do like an Arnold weekend type episode thing. But that never panned out. But I kind of want to do that. So whenever I travel and if I meet anyone, I'm like, yo, why don't we just hook up and why don't we just link up, have a conversation? I can attach two mics to us. I can plug in the voice memo app, press record, and it will go. And then just bring that to the podcast. So that's why
cool. When Dillon and I filmed a recent training video, which actually, by the way, Dillon, it's done now and it is absolutely sick. I got to send that to you. He had us just use these little mics with this little furry thing on them, and they're actually the sound is actually great, and they're not disruptive at all. Really, like we trained with them on the whole time.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I want to do. So whenever I travel anywhere, my travel is supposed to be very intentional, and I don't want to travel with a big ass microphone. Like if I come see you guys, I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to bring these little mics, and we'll have like a dope in-person thing, right?
That'd be fun.
So, well, getting to the thing. Let's start with everyone's weeks. Braeden, kick it off.
My week was great, man. I got to witness a childhood friend that I grew up with since I was literally 2 years old. And obviously you kind of grow apart as you get older and people go their own paths, but still have stayed in contact and got to witness him get married and tied a knot yesterday. So that was cool. I was a fat boy last night. Cam told me I could have a meal at the wedding. So I had a meal at the wedding. I didn't go hard though. I was actually probably underweight, to be honest with you. I was just visiting with people and stuff, but it was good. That was cool. I have, some new athletes we onboarded this week. I brought back an athlete who I worked with previously that had some shoots and stuff. And basically, long story short, you guys know me and you guys are no different. I'm not going to diet somebody when there's hormonal dysfunctions and stuff going on. So we kind of had to agree to disagree, and it wasn't my place. I wouldn't diet her down when I felt she wasn't ready to, but she wanted to do these shoots. So did her thing for a bit, brought her back on, and we're going to get her rolling again. A couple other athletes I brought on, just was telling you guys I got a new one here today, the competitor that I'm going to be pulling out of a contest prep from a situation he was in with somebody else, and we're going to get him healthy and then kind of plan long-term ahead. Just getting things ready, man. I was telling Dillon the other day, it's going to be really, really, really busy here coming up as contest season starts. Where first show for me with an athlete is 2 weeks out right now. So
nice.
Kind of getting things dialed in for that, making sure that like sodium levels are exact with him, water levels are exact, everything is exact, so I can start tinkering a little bit on a daily basis. He's going to send me check-ins so I can play around with different things to see exactly where he's at. He's not a guy that holds a lot of water, so we'll probably not have to do a whole lot of terms in terms of manipulating that stuff. But again, we were a little, I don't want to say behind with them, but we planned on peaking them at like 75-80% because we still had, I think it was like 8 weeks between our next show, which was the national qualifier. And then we decided to pull him out of the qualifier just because upper body, I believe he genuinely has what it takes to be a pro and potentially push for a card, but lower body, there just needs to be some more work there. And he's never really done an off season with a coach. So at 3 weeks out, we decided that, and it would kind of suck because obviously, like I said, we weren't pushing for that 100%, but then we spiced it up a little bit to try to bring him in at 100 now. I mean, I think he realistically can do very well regardless, but I'd like to see how far we can push him. So yeah, just getting ready for a busy season ahead, and I'm excited for it, man. This is Sundays of the day. I love this. So
Awesome. Dillon?
Yeah, my week was real good. I took on a new athlete today also, so that's going to be fun. She's the next competitor. Not sure if she wants to again, but we have some health stuff but like some easy health stuff, which sounds bad because like there is easy health stuff now for me. But like I wasn't totally like, wow, that's months and months of work. I feel like it's a couple of months of good structures and supplementation, etc., and be rolling. So that'll be a fun muscle building case. Other than that, just work, getting ready for the Jay Cutler tour, bringing Jay Cutler to a bunch of our stores and doing kind of a Canada tour. So I was at the store today, just making sure it's dialed in, ready to go, and doing some orders and stuff. So it's nice and full. And then today I went, I also was going to go for a free meal that I did not ask my coach for, but then I didn't end up going for one, kind of. We went to check out a wedding venue and I just kind of forgot we were doing that. But after my workout, it was like, hey, we got to go. I'm like, oh, damn. Okay. Yeah, we do. And I knew that I was told. So I was like, oh shit, I didn't want to argue because it's important.
we really are the same person, man. I only say that because 2 days ago or a few days ago came my wedding this weekend, and I was like, oh shit. Yesterday, or what day was that? Sorry, Friday night, I messaged my barber and I was like, hey man, my beard is disastrous. My hair is disastrous. You think I could possibly get you to come in early in the morning and squeak me in? And then unfortunately he couldn't because he's doing Ramadan. So he's fasting till 5 a.m. and staying up till 5 or whatever. So I basically had to go there, a complete mess. But
oh, well, so yeah, that's okay. I went to the potential wedding venue also like the complete mess that I also am. I will get a haircut and a beard trim or cut before the tour. But yeah, it was good. So we did that, and they ended up having like a station where the guy just like literally made me an egg white omelet, like exactly what I wanted. And they had pancakes, and it was post workout, so I had egg whites and pancakes. It was like,
oh, nice.
Shot up some insulin. You're just like,
yeah.
pancakes.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. You patow.
Yeah.
Fun.
You got any extra high fructose corn syrup in there, Pop?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was good. It was real good. And then they were like, it was like a real nice place. So I even asked them like how they made the pancakes. I'm like, wow, this is like literally protein and carbs. This is perfect. Awesome. So yeah, otherwise week was good, man. Just I like doing these podcasts like Braeden said. I even bought a mic this week finally, just because I'm starting to like it so much. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna invest in this a little bit and get a mic and get the setup going. So excited.
Oh yeah. How was your experience on the Rogers squat?
Awful. My legs are broken. They're actually broken. Then
Yeah.
it made me so grouchy the next day. I was just like, any step I took, it just made me mad.
It was brutal. Yeah, it's brutal.
I gotta ask, what happens? Like, what causes that machine to roll the way it did at the end of that one set, Bill?
Nothing. It's just because it's not like screwed to the floor. So Kevin went to lift up on the one peg to spot me because
the whole machine was moving,
and he just spun me like a tilt-a-whirl, like the whole thing on, because it has a platform that you're standing in, but it's a big metal flat sheet on the whole bottom of the thing. So he just turned it like he turned the whole machine, and I was facing the wall, and then I was facing 5 feet the other way, and I was like, holy shit.
I was trying to figure out what the fuck happened with that thing.
Yeah.
It's such a nice. So in the last like 7
my favorite squat piece actually I've ever used with the wedges ever. And I'm like a pretty good squat pattern person. Like I don't even mind barbell. They're okay. It feels like a barbell to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I can lock my back in, and I still have to work very hard in the lumbar though. Like you
You
can't
do.
just
You have to break. You
put it into
have
a
to
hack.
break.
You can't just like lay down like a hack and just
Yeah.
put it on the knees. You have to focus on the core and the hips, pulling the hips down. I'm smoked after that. I did that set of 9 with 3 plates. I turned around and I laid on the floor and Kevin picked up my arm and he's like, bro, your heart rate's at 189. Like it feels like it, man. Yeah,
Fuck yes, yes. I lifted more than Dylan. Fuck yeah. Fuck you.
Did you?
Fuck you. I did 3 plates and 5 for 9.
Oh yeah. Well,
yes.
It's only my second.
Shush.
I was gonna say you gotta let that learning curve sink in.
It's gonna be 5 plates.
You're gonna realize how fast you're gonna move on that because I've gone in the past 7 sessions. Not gonna lie, it'd probably be greater if I wasn't in a deficit, but in a deficit, I've gone from 2 plates per side and a 2.5 to 3 plates per side and a 10 for
well, now you're just
for
making
9.
me every time I see Dylan's videos, I'm gonna be like, this better be at 4.5 plates in 6 weeks, my man.
Oh, 100. I'm going 4 plates next session. I think.
Dude, it's so nice. It's when Dylan
I still have not really used one.
Dylan knows what I'm finally feeling when I say, yo, I'm like convulsing by the end because that shit is literally like a squat and it's fucking awful. And it's so nice. So
Have any of you guys
if you're able to get a slight heel wedge on that and be able to drive those. I remember when I sent them with the high one, like the really high wedge, dude, that was just there was nothing there but knee flexion. Like it literally wasn't even like hips were coming down. It was like a lever. It was like a lever going up and down. So it was like that thing. And then I did a split.
You guys ever used a true squat?
No, my gym owner doesn't personally like it. He doesn't personally like it.
Really? I've heard they're actually nuts.
I never have either. It's actually one of the pieces
I want to try
haven't used. The gym
mechanically they look insane.
Yeah, it's like sits you down and then makes you stand
yeah
up,
it
looks it pulls your torso in, so it's almost like a leg extension out of the bottom because you stand up but you go back.
There's nothing to do. You can't move anything but your quads because it forces you to have that. It has that back pad, so you can't move anything. So yeah. So then I did those pendulum split squats, which I will record a video next session. I do that, but
yeah, I need to see a video of that. I've never seen a pendulum.
If you guys do it, you might cry. I got to it wasn't the first legs, the good bullet. It's fine.
So how do you set up in there?
What?
Are you're just doing it like literally you're in the machine like you normally would. You're putting one foot down and the other one on the ground, or?
Yeah. And you just allow that rec fem of the back leg to like stretch, and you hit it. Oof. You stop right before that knee of that back leg hits the foot pad. And right before then, it's just a leg extension out of that hole. And you add it. All we had to do was add a band. There wasn't even weight. It was just an added band to it, just double wrapped, and it was fucking miserable. It was
the Paramount.
I want to see a video of that.
Single leg, and I can't even lift the machine single leg with a reverse back. The whole thing.
Yeah, I'll take a video and send it because I think you would like it.
I want to see that.
But my week's been good. I got added in cardio and dropped calories, so now I'm kind of in the thick of it.
Yes, sir.
4 sessions of 325 calories. So it took me like 30 minutes the other day, which was brutal. I was like sweating like a pig. It's the first time I've had cardio since like July 2020. so it's pretty interesting how I haven't had cardio for a long ass time. And I'm like, oh, finally I get cardio.
Lungs are probably just screaming.
What?
Lungs are just screaming.
Oh yeah. They were like, fuck you. They were like, what is going on right now? And so that was pretty awful. But everything's going well. I had a few clients start this week. So that's nice. Dealing with a few inflammation cases, which is always fun. Always dealing with the same hormonal cases. The one I posted today is pretty cool. She's an absolute fucking monster. She apparently squatted 335 before she started with me, and she had all this hormonal dysfunction. So I'm hoping to get her back to squatting 335 because her legs are fucking wild. If she could do that, she's going to be crazy.
Big squat.
So I'm looking forward to it. My training's going the best it has. I did back day today. It was fucking fire. I hit a new low today of 179.2. So I'm still in that skinny fat. I'm like, why am I not shredded? I did one cardio. No, but overall I'm feeling good. You know, things are going pretty well over here. I can't complain. You know, I'm kind of happy that I have cardio because now it's giving me even more incentive to just tighten down my schedule and tighten down my energy over who I give energy to and what I do. So that's been probably the nicest part of it since even adding it in just yesterday is like, I just feel more inclined to get more sleep so I can get up to get cardio done in the morning. And so I can get things done. So I'm a lot more organized. I also clean my apartment. That's a big thing. I will admit this.
Hey,
Man, having a clear space, having like a clean space, like all around, it's a huge difference maker in terms of being able to think. Like I'm not thinking
it's
about
proven. It's proven to increase productivity, man.
I'm just not thinking about anything. Like it's just all just focused in on here instead of like the mess over there. Like it's just focused in on here. So it's been pretty cool. My clients have definitely liked my responses the past few days. Everything, my clients are all kicking ass. So yeah, everything's good with me. So
I actually have one more thing that I'm excited about for this week that you and I recently had a conversation about, Anthony.
oh
So last night I booked my my neck tattoo.
oh yes.
So some people have told me I look scary, so I'm about to look scarier.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm getting it done the day before actually the Alberta Open in Calgary. So I'll be on the bed for probably a good portion of that day, watching Pat's check-ins, and then I'll show up the next morning with a tattoo on my neck at the show.
I'll see it there.
I talked about it. I
Absolutely.
talked about mine. I talked about mine with Braeden, and I won't give it away yet because I love my idea.
It's cool. Cool.
But I need to get it booked. I have this thing of like I'm delaying like giving my deposit and delaying like scheduling it down, and I'm like, I don't know why I keep delaying it, but I just want to get it done so badly, and I'm like, oh, let's get it done. I signed a few clients. I feel good. let me.
I'm just I've been wanting to get new ink for so long. I'm just a frugal fuck, and they're not cheap. And then I'm like, you know what, you don't have to spend that money. And then finally I decided that I was gonna do it. And I'm that guy, like once you make that decision, I need it yesterday. So I've been like pissing around trying to find artists who don't have a 6-month wait list but are still really good. And this one artist, he was asking me what I want for a piece. So I kind of described it to him. And he was like, I really want to be a part of this piece. So I just had a cancellation. Can you come down to Calgary on the 20th? And I'm like, I'm already there, my man.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to be like July, August probably until I probably get in. I would assume that's when someone who I want to get has their books open for. So I got to message them like ASAP though, so I get on there because I'm trying to get inked up again. It's like a therapy. I haven't done it in such a long time though. It's been like 3 years since I got a tattoo. So
yeah, me too. Since I got my hand done.
Yeah. So all right.
32 years for me.
What'd you say?
What's that?
Been 32 years for me. Never had one.
Once you're down here, we get Anthony down here, we're gonna pin you down and I'll just grab a gun and start going down.
We're just gonna pin like a really bad wolf.
We'll give you a jailhouse tat. I'll just grab a bamboo stick and a pad of ink and start jabbing you.
Well, I thought I might get one at one time, so it's not that shocking.
I could see you getting one done pretty soon. We'll influence
I
you.
haven't got it done because I'm
influence you to get a podcast mic. We could definitely influence you to get a tattoo.
Oh, I could probably be influenced to do lots of things. The reason I don't do it is because I'm like, fuck, I'll probably get addicted to it and then I'll look like Braeden. And
very true.
That'll be me. 100%.
That's such a subtle shot.
Very true. It's absolutely completely addicting, and I can only imagine what opening Pandora's box with this neck is going to make me do after that.
Yeah, but as you can see, I also need a haircut too.
Oh, you know how I am. I can't just do things a little bit.
No. Yeah. Test the waters and then fucking floor it.
Yeah, that's really what happened. I sat for like 3 hours for mine, and it was brutal. Like it was just my back.
I sat for 8.5 straight, man.
Yeah, fuck no. Nope. I did 3 and I almost went hypo. So
I'm weird though, dude. I'm really weird. Like I almost find it soothing. I don't find it like painful. My hand though, when you go on bone on the knuckles, I was cringing, but I don't mind tattoos, man. I don't find them like painful.
No, mine only hurt when it was around my spine. Mine just barely touched, like it touched.
Oh yeah, that'll mess you up, man. My whole body was vibrating when my spine was getting hit.
And then it ends like right here by my armpit. So It's like once you get to that area too, it's just like It's just so annoying. I'm like, get this done, get it done, please. So, but on to bigger things.
Yeah, the good stuff.
Today's topic, for people, we haven't really asked people for topics, but we just keep coming up with good ones, or at least I keep coming up with good ones. No, I'm kidding. You guys come up with pretty good ones too. But we're going to chat about just overall health in this industry. We're going to chat about what we could do to improve health markers. Specifically, kind of going to look at kidney, liver, heart, and inflammation, because this is what we see as the biggest need for people. And it's often the things that they ignore the most. Most people think blood work's just sex hormones, and it's not. It's more than that. Getting your CMP correct and your CBC is probably two of the most important parts to your body actually functioning correctly and being healthy and being alive than anything else in your system. They're all interconnected. So I don't care how we start this, boys, but does someone want to start off with a supplement or something, food source, whatever that people could start implementing that might actually help for a specific part of the blood markers?
Go ahead, Dill. We'll let you take the first one.
You want me to take the first crack?
Yeah, let's
take
give it a
the
go.
first crack.
Sure. Organ meats.
I knew
Easy.
say that. I knew that was coming.
Yeah. Okay. I know we talked about this before, but like when we talk about bodybuilding, I'm gonna get real now because I don't really say what I believe to be true fully, and I'm going to try articulate this well. Because it's like, okay, now because we've kind of decided we're going to talk about bodybuilding specifically a little bit more. And this might relate to a lot of lifestyle people and anyone that's very serious about their health, but it is going to be geared toward a little bit more bodybuilding. I just can't get my head around the fact that someone will do bathtub drugs and like where they don't know where the drugs are coming from, take every supplement, do everything to optimize everything. But you bring up an organ meat and it's like, that's too weird. Like, help me. It's like, they have so many benefits. Like all the things that we pay for peptides that come from these products. BPC 157, guys, got joints. We pay to have injectable L-carnitine, so that we can have a better pump, a better fatty acid mobilization. That's in heart organ meat, so like there's huge benefits and it's cheap. That's the other thing. You can incorporate like an ounce of beef liver in your diet. And I'm actually happy that Derek from More Plates, More Dates started doing this after having a podcast with Paul Saladino, because he's got a huge reach. And I'm like, that's actually enough. I'm not trying to tell people to do what I do in any sense. Pick something, try a few things, pick something, because a lot of the diet is filled with chicken. And, especially if you're using performance enhancers, you're not usually intaking mass amounts of dietary fats, so it's like you're probably eating leaner meats. Well, then it's super easy to incorporate some organ meats in your diet and get all the nutrients that you'd otherwise be lacking. It's really hard when you're eating a lot of rice products. They're pretty null in nutrients. Grains don't have that much. Fruits are good. They have a lot, but they're still missing a huge component, right? So, you look at a lot of the carb sources and protein sources that a lot of bodybuilders are eating, they're just very dead in nutrients. And I think that when you look at blood work, oftentimes you can kind of see that, like I've seen it in so many people. You give them, a little bit of supplementation, you give them, proper nutrition, and their health markers all start to turn around very quickly because you're kind of building from the base up, in my opinion. I don't know if there's any rebuttals to that. I'd love it.
No,
if I'm missing something, I'd love to be corrected.
No, I love that. I think it's a great way. I think honestly, it's a great way to also just be able to nail those things too, because you got to think you're absorbing what they're eating. So you got to think if you're eating liver, right, it's gonna help your liver. If you're eating a thyroid, it's gonna help your thyroid. If you're eating kidney, it's gonna help your kidney, right? Overall, I mean, I've talked to you about this probably a million times, right? Because now it's just ingrained in my head. Like, go to organ meat, like especially when there's liver issues. Number one thing I see with things is, we talk about the B vitamins for a lot of things, and we're not just talking about just people who need hormonal health work, right? We're talking about bodybuilders too that need this. Like, you're not going to have a properly functioning thyroid or body without B vitamins whatsoever.
Mhm.
Try to be deficient in B12 and see what happens. Like it has a downstream effect that I see very often. And so I even implement it with a few people, like just using liver, and it's worked out great. You know, you see energy levels go up, you see mood go up. Like these things have proper application where they need to be. And it's a very simple solution. I mean, if people are willing to do it, right? I think that's the one rebuttal to the thing is if people are willing to do it, because it doesn't always, people aren't always attracted to it. Obviously, there's other ways of getting it. Like you can get desiccated liver pills and things like that. Just got to be careful on your sourcing. But I find that these things are great replacements if you need to fix something, because oftentimes we consistently throw a supplement at things, and for some issues you got to take like 3 or 4 different supplements, right? Whereas this you can bang out, you can get however much. Well, usually I go to Dillon, so Dillon usually knows how much servings people need in accordance. But once you're able to find what you need for that individual, you can see things improve fairly quickly by utilizing these. And I think not being nutrient deficient is going to help you in bodybuilding sense. It's going to help you stay healthier just internally, but it's also going to help you with fat loss and muscle gain. And if things are able to properly function correctly, you're going to look leaner. You're going to be able to build muscle easier. It's going to overall help you. So just from my experience of implementing it already, I've seen great anecdotal experience from just even implementing it with regular people. And if regular people,
one last thing to add too, Anthony, on top of that is, excuse me, when you're talking about using maybe performance enhancers, right? You start looking at side effects like acne, right? You know, it's like, oh, what's another thing? We get neuron depletion essentially, right? So our neurology takes a big hit. Oh, there's a huge, massive chunk of very bioavailable choline that until you've tried it, you've never taken. VitaCholine patented. I've tried every supplement on the planet. Nothing feels like that. And, you know, so you're getting a choline replenishment, you're getting B5 that's very hard to get in the diet unless you're going to find it elsewhere. You're probably deficient, you know, so it can help with acne. It's a very useful tool. That's, you know, we can leave it at that. It's got its application. And I'm not saying it's for everyone all the time, but just for like something that I know almost nobody's going to be allergic to, almost no one's not going to benefit besides the taste, because it's not costly. It's good for the environment. You know, like it's really not, doesn't have too many downsides besides maybe the unappeal to it culturally. And I mean, that's a big thing, but it's, other than that, it's pretty safe. And that's why I used that as my first thing. If I was going to say a first thing.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right.
I can segue off that one, just speaking to your B vitamins you were mentioning there, Anthony, just because one of the things that I wanted to speak about was actually a B vitamin. Obviously, like I told you guys, for me, I kind of wanted to speak more towards the bodybuilding stuff that's going to help with lipid profiles, heart health, etc. Because for me, that's an area that I've done quite a good amount of research on in the past, especially with my own heart issues and stuff like that, trying to find ways to come off my medications I was on and whatnot, right? So niacin, vitamin B3, very, very, very important supplement, I would say. And a lot of people opt for flush-free niacin, which there's 2 types. Well, I guess there's technically, I think there's 3 types of niacin. I think 2 of them are not actually, or one of them is actually not allowed or to be sold or made. But there's extended release, so that's the one that's going to have less flush. That's your flush-free niacins and stuff like that. And then there's the flush niacin, right? So basically the reason I bring this up is it's proven to be extremely effective for helping to improve lipid profiles. Now obviously some people just can't handle the flush, and like what that flush is, it's nothing dangerous or scary. It's basically just small capillaries in the skin that dilate, increasing blood flow to the skin, and so you get red, warm, right? So it's not, I mean, sure, if you're going in public and you have a niacin flush, it's probably not going to be ideal. People are going to be like, the fuck's going on with this person? But at the same time, like, you also do get adjusted to it, and your body does get used to it over time, right? And then that kind of stuff's happening. But yeah, so one of the things that, like I told you guys, I pulled up a couple studies that I did have here. One of the things that stood out to me, one of them says Niacin is the only lipid modifying agent that significantly affects lipoprotein A with reductions of 20 to 38%. Therefore, in patients with dyslipidemia, that includes elevated lipoprotein A levels, niacin would be the preferred agent. And that's speaking of that over statins, right? So statins are drugs that are used to obviously decrease hyperlipidemia and stuff like that. And now when it comes to that elevated lipoprotein A, that raises your risk of heart attack and stroke beyond what is already seen by just LDL elevation or oxidized LDL, right? So we look at the supplementing with vitamin B3 or niacin, you're looking at something that's already going to potentially help you in that sense. And then it's also bringing anti-inflammatory, it has anti-lipolytic effects, antioxidant effects. There's just other things it does, which, I mean, we know that because B vitamins are so important, right? But that's a specific B vitamin that's very, very important. And like taking 1 to 3 grams of that daily as somebody who is using PEDs and doing things that are potentially creating issues with your heart health, I think can be very, very beneficial. So I think that whole B vitamin and organ meat conversation is the perfect segue into niacin.
Yeah, then to go, I guess to go into my next one, which I guess will follow yours and lipid. I'm gonna actually take a different route. I'm gonna go with Dillon's way. Fat sources. I think people choose very, very poor fat sources.
Yeah.
Right? I think most people, now there's always a thing of saturated fat and everything like that, but you have to look at where are you getting your fats from? A lot of people are using these really cheap like olive oils to really kind of help, thinking that olive oils, hey, it's a great monounsaturated fat, right? Well, that really cheap plastic bottle of olive oil that you keep buying is most likely canola oil. Like there's usually 100% guaranteed that's really more majority canola oil rather than olive oil, right? And so, you have to look at your lipid panels, right? You can obviously, what do we typically see when people have ton of vegetable oils and things like that? Well, we typically see low HDL and we typically see high LDL. And that's a recipe for disaster, right? As Braeden said, you get to that LDL and you oxidize, and it oxidizes fairly quickly. You're going to cause lots of heart damage pretty rapidly. And so I think having these anti-inflammatory sources of fats is really, really important here. My favorite, a few of mine are coconut oil. I always go with coconut oil, number one, because it has multiple benefits. Not only is it anti-inflammatory, but it's also, it's an MCT. So you're going to use it differently. You're going to use it for energy. And it's also an antimicrobial.
Yeah.
So it has 3 different pathways, which overall, I also see a lot of bodybuilders end up having gut issues, right? Because they end up eating all these plain foods and then it just they end up not really hurting. They keep it really low FODMAP, but you can only do that for so long until you don't get the proper balance of bacteria within your gut. So being able to have some more coconut oil is really good. Really good avocado oil. I'm a big fan of when it comes down to things. I've been doing this this has been my replacement for olive oil because it's really actually hard to find some of these sources I'm going to say.
I love avocado oil for cooking too because it has such a high smoke point.
Yes, that's exactly. Yes, also why. Macadamia oil is fucking phenomenal. I don't know about you guys, but if I get my hands on some good macadamia nut oil,
it tastes incredible.
Yeah, it makes your shit taste really fucking good.
Yeah.
And then red palm oil too, right? You gotta look at red palm oil. It also has other benefits. It's high in vitamin A and beta carotene. I think I'm saying that right.
Carotene.
Yeah, carotene. I don't know. Good thing I do macros, right? I don't say big words. So those are pretty big when it comes down to lipids. I think really choosing what fat sources you are actually getting. And I guess I could wrap in with that, fish oil.
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I put everyone on right away, right? Is a high quality fish oil because it just flips around. I just see that lipid profile flip around very quickly. And I see triglyceride levels flip around very quickly from these things. So we could go down a million pathways with lipids, but I honestly think that it all starts with choosing what you're actually eating. Like as much as you could supplement with things, you could put in like citrus bergamot to bring up HDL or whatever. I really think you could bring it up through the sources that you're eating and how you're implementing things. And honestly, I think with that, just to kind of bring in a strategy here for what I like to do with my bodybuilders is I like to go very low carb on rest day. I'll push those fats pretty high for people. Low carb that's a very general statement for different people, but it can be anywhere from 100. It could be even 300. For some people, 300 is low carb for them, right? There's there that do that, but I think subbing down carbs and boosting up these really good fats is a great way to decrease inflammation within the body, decrease the risk of getting blood clots, and overall just bringing better health to you, to truly be honest.
Yeah, I guess to piggyback on what you were saying too, because we were talking about how there's shitty quality olive oils, right? And then we started talking about fish oils. Fish oils is a huge one with that too, because most people's fish oils are actually dog shit. And that's one of the reasons that I favor krill oil over a regular fish oil. Now, both are very important. And a lot of times I'll have people take like a high quality fish oil, like the Nordic Naturals one, or Nordic Naturals actually has a really cool supplement called Omega LDL. But anyways, we can talk about that later. It has some other things that I was going to mention in there, but I like krill oil because it has I don't even know for sure how to say it. Astaxanthin, I think it's called. How you say it? Astaxanthin. And basically what that is, it's a super potent antioxidant, which is what gives the red color to salmon and the krill itself. It's found in, obviously we've seen lots of stuff come out in recent years about like phytoplankton and algae. Astaxanthin is found in those. And realistically, a lot of fish oils go rancid on the shelf, but there's a decreased ability for oxidation with astaxanthin. So basically right there, you've decreased that risk already in the rancidness of your fish oil by using a high quality omega like a krill oil. So again, I mean, it's not mandatory you have to use krill. I just opt for a lot of time. And actually I 100% can give credit to Dante Trudel for introducing me to that. And then I kind of went down a rabbit hole learning what exactly was beneficial about it and whatnot. And that kind of led me to that back in the day. So I've been using krill oil with my athletes for quite a long time. I'm pretty sure actually Morphogen has a pretty good powdered fish oil in one of their supplements, don't they?
Yeah, they're actually fully powdered, and it's fully, and the things aren't clear either. So a lot of things is that the coating's always clear, which ends up causing the rancidness, right? Because the sunlight gets through it. So the fact that they have a bottle that keeps it out of light and everything like that keeps it well contained.
That's another thing. That's another thing to touch on with like the olive oil. If it's a clear bottle, chances are it's going to be oxidized, right? Like where is that sitting, right? So you get a dark bottle and stuff, and there's other things that go into the quality of that. But yeah, that was just one thing I wanted to add there to your fish
I also like Dillon and Taylor actually brought me onto this cod liver oil. I've turned into a big fan now of doing that, even more so than the fish oil, right? I find that just works a lot better, has better vitamins. I think it's high in, if I'm right, vitamin A and vitamin E. I think if I'm correct.
A, E, and D.
A, E, and D, which obviously we touch on vitamin D because I think that's probably the one I'll slide into after Dillon goes through his next one. But I think that's just it. Like you said, it's less oxidized because it's also a liquid too. And it's in a dark bottle as well. I use Carlson's for a lot of people. That's the one that I find. And for anything, I feel like it's just pretty easy to get 5 grams in of that a day, and you'll be really set with a lot of omega-3s.
Tastes like shit though.
Oh yeah, it tastes like shit, but you know.
Yeah, it doesn't taste the best. Cod liver oil is really good. I kind of prefer that one also versus
I agree.
Fish oil, let's say. I do like krill. Krill's a great source also. Anthony brought up something too that I wanted to touch on, because saturated fats, would be considered a lot of what's in like animal source fats. I find if the quality of that is high, like if you're not buying the cheapest, kind of freezer bag meat type stuff, my lipids are pretty good. And to be honest, I eat very little of anything you guys mentioned. Like I almost get all of my fats from animal sources. I do have some coconut oil, and my lipids were very, very good the less bloods we did before this push. And usually they are. But I do also intake quite a bit of krill and cod liver. So like maybe that is also helping, right? So and fair enough. And that's great. So that's kind of how that's a great example.
You also have to remember too, like you weren't cranking when you got that blood and stuff done, right? Like when you're on a cycle, would you need more support for biasing LDL, HDL? I don't know. I genuinely think probably, but I don't know. We'll have to, what I mean? But
we'll find that out. We'll find that out pretty soon.
So and that's kind of what I was going to get to next, is that we'll be able to find it out. But anyway, so there is a quality source there.
Yep.
I think the next one I want to go with and it's actually talking about something we never brought up, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because I feel very passionate to bring it up, which is, because the last things we talked about are going to be beneficial for the kidney, the heart, the liver. We oftentimes forget to talk about the brain.
Yeah.
And for a few reasons, because there's the least amount of data. And that means we should be talking about it more in the community because there's less research to lean on. And I can tell you right now, as someone who's a little bit more self-aware, first exposure to a 19 NOR, it was like, oh, wow, okay. Yeah, this is neurologically cranking me because I'm not my typical self. But anyway, so the next one I think, and it also is very good for the kidney potentially. So lion's mane, I think, is something that is very underutilized on enhancement phases, especially. I'm talking like anywhere from 3 to 6 grams of either, Pico 2 is a great product.
Holy
too.
shit, 3 to 6 grams? You fucking super dose that, my friend.
Honestly, what's okay. So that's I was thinking about this episode today, and then I was thinking, wow, this is going to be fun because it's going to be a lot about supplements, which is like I like supplements, obviously, and then I started thinking like, man, I'm going to start talking about some of these doses I take of things that people, the boys are going to be like, holy man, that's a lot. But to me, it's not. Like, when you look at like literature of stuff, like often it's like almost sometimes in the fitness space, we forget to read the studies. I think people read too many conclusions, like astragalus, for instance, like in a kidney product, we're putting like 4 to 5 grams. That's like the base useful dose that it even becomes worthwhile taking.
Yeah.
In most of the studies, we're talking 12 to 17 grams a day. It's a lot. In functional medicine and functional Chinese medicine, when you're doing things that alter health that aren't just preventative, the dosing is high. Yep. Like in cases, pretty severe SIBO cases, I'll use 3 grams of berberine in a day, no problem.
Yeah, I do too. Yes, I go hard. Yep.
So like if I'm purposely defending, which on cycle, that's a big enemy, let's call it, for your physiology. Like you're defending a lot of doors, and to me, I think there's like there's no negative to adding proper quality amounts of the supplementation so that they actually could potentially do what they're supposed to, versus just kind of taking a gram of Pico 2 in your amino acids and closing your eyes to it. Because I think that's what guys do, right? It's like, oh, well, I took this thing, the all-in-one organ supplement, and you look at it and it's like, oh, it's got some Tudka and some milk thistle at the lowest available dose, and you're cranking. Mm-hmm. That is a mental paradise, is what that is. You went and put yourself on an island where you told yourself you're safe because you're taking this thing. If you really want to play with supplementation to alter health, I think the dosing has to match that.
Especially if PEDs are in the equation.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I think I'm gearing my talk towards, because talking about bodybuilders, to me, lion's mane is for the.
I love it. Just to give anecdotal, I used it a ton. I mean, I'm not on PEDs or anything like that, but even just for how I was with dealing with working at a bar late night, and I knew I was getting poor sleep and my cognitive function was not there fully, I implemented even just 1,000 milligrams every day for my senior year when I was getting poor sleep and I had to be up early. And I could tell you I was functioning pretty damn well. once, like at least cognitively wise. Maybe not body function wise, but cognitively I was way better performing with
That makes a lot of sense, actually. And it would have been, using, like using high amounts of like a 19 nor, or, the lion's mane is fighting exactly what the 19 nor is doing, which is like regeneration of cell growth, new neuron, right? Connectivity.
Yep.
And the 19 nors are basically chopping those ends off. So to me, and like you get one brain, and maybe it's just me, but I'm like, man, I they can do crazy things to a heart, but it's real hard to operate on the brain. So that's why I wanted to bring up something, that could potentially at least protect the neurological system a little bit.
We get real crazy and dive into microdosing mushrooms too.
Yeah, well, we can. They work.
That shit's interesting and fascinating to me. Realistically, it is, but
well,
cool.
we can save that for another podcast. We could do a whole one on that.
I'll piggyback off that one.
Shoot, man, go ahead.
Just because I had one that, again, kind of for me goes into the cardiac side of things, but it also actually does have benefit also to what you were talking about in terms of brain function and so forth. So
Yep.
I don't know if you guys may have heard of it, apigenin.
Yep.
So apigenin, I was first introduced to it by Abolic, actually. Matt had me taking it when I was working with Matt, and I was kind of going through the ingredient list, being the nerd I am, looking up everything. And there's testosterone, and I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of testosterone and I think it's a little bit overplayed, but it also does. I mean, it's not, I'm not saying it's useless. I think I've also seen it do some pretty cool things because I've used that supplement in natural athletes and seen some good stuff happen. But I really like apigenin because it has impacts with hypertension and cardiac hypertrophy, improves renal function and oxidative stress, fibrosis. It's going to have an potential effect on blood glucose and lipid metabolism. And then when we go to the brain, like we were just talking about, it has improvements in depression from increased uptake of tyrosine, and it inhibits MAO activity. And then there's other things that there's been shown studies where they applied it for those that had Alzheimer's and amnesia, and it improves like memory and so forth and that too. So taking like 20 to 50 milligrams per kilogram of apigenin, and there is studies on that too that show that's also very beneficial. So again, one of those things that, yes, you're taking a supplement maybe for one area, but it can drastically improve other areas too, right? A lot of this stuff is like that because, well, the body works as a functioning system. You're not just literally putting something in your body and it goes, I'm going to head straight to the kidneys and only affect the kidneys, right? It has to go through ingestion and move through the entire chain of events that actually take it to where it needs to go. And the body's going to move it where it will utilize it.
Yeah, it's a good one. I haven't looked into it. I've seen it on a few ingredient labels, but I never looked into it. Do you have like a dose that you typically see?
Yeah, so I usually, like I said, I go kind of with that 20 to 50 milligram per kilogram. But again, I don't think it's necessarily, it's one of those ones that you're not going to be unsafe if you play around with it a little bit and push it a little bit higher or anything. So for me, I've only ever utilized it through Abolic because I actually did really like the Abolic supplement made by the lab supplements. But yeah, it's one of those things that it definitely, I noticed the effects of it when I used it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm going to go with an all round big one. And I think everyone's probably going to agree with this. It's probably one of the most basic ones, but I've been super dosing it with a lot of people lately. I guess you can quote unquote super dosing it. I don't know what Dillon's quote of super dosing actually means now. So we'll see when I say this. NAC and acetylcysteine. Probably when we were just talking about this, and we'll bring it up. Cameron Cheek actually sent out a cycle that was beyond ridiculous.
Made me fucking sick.
There were injections, there were orals, like it was everything under the sun. Basically, this guy was taking, and we see this very often in the industry, and a lot of people will not care for what orals actually do in terms of toxicity and how it gets broken down. You got to think. We discussed alcohol last week. Think about that times like 10 for taking an oral. It can get pretty bad depending on your dose, because I've seen some coaches actually put things like Anadrol and things up pretty high on some programs. So you have to think taking care of your liver, it's your main detox pathway. Like your liver handles every toxin that comes through the body. And you got to think, this is where being smart with dosages even comes in play when it comes down to orals, and specifically using orals for a purpose and only for a certain amount of time. But you got to think, well, what does NAC do? Well, obviously the biggest thing that it does is it builds up, it helps the precursor for glutathione. So I guess I can add in injectable glutathione here too, because we're also talking about bodybuilders in general, and they probably aren't afraid of an injection at this point. So you may as well just if you can, just do it, and you're not afraid to do an extra injection. I honestly would do injectable glutathione. It's obviously going to help with just decreasing overall inflammation on the body, liver and kidney protection too as well. You got to think it also, like Dillon said, like we're talking about brain health, like it regulates glutamate, which can have a great effect on someone. And you got to look at also, that liver health down regulates into, being able to prevent damage to your cardiovascular system. Like 100%. So NAC is overall, it's one product I implement with a lot of people once I see any sort of inflammation markers go up. I actually had a few people have some things of like a high CRP and things like that. And this is one of the supplements that I particularly like to use to bring down those values in things. And I like to dose it pretty high. I've been talking with Dillon and Taylor too about this and how to kind of dose this properly. So many people like to just use 600 milligrams a day. Like Dillon said, that's kind of the very minimum.
4 times that.
Yeah, that's the very minimum that you should be doing. You need to be doing, I particularly for anyone that, and I don't work with anyone right now that is particularly enhanced, but I have, and I brought them up to 1200 to 2400. 2400 is typically where I like to go with these things. 1200 in the morning, 1200 at night. I've seen that have a great response in terms of liver enzymes and in terms of how someone's feeling, how someone's doing. So if you really want to improve kind of overall function of yourself and really protect all your bases, I feel like NAC is a really important supplement to add in there. It should be a baseline supplement for anyone. To truly be honest, I am sponsored by Morphogen, so I don't like to shout out their products a lot though on the podcast, but Morpho Prime is overall, I will probably say, is probably the hands down. If you really need just a cover of health, it's probably the overall best because it handles mainly everything. It has milk thistle, grapeseed, ubiquinol, red yeast rice. Like it has everything that you kind of need to really protect yourself. But I will say the biggest ingredient, my favorite ingredient, is the NAC in there, just because I'm a big fan of liver. Liver comes first. If you can't take care of your liver, you're going to have very poor fat loss and muscle gain, to truly be honest. So all you people that continue to go drinking too while taking orals, have fun, because you're going to see that you might not see it now, but give it some time. I tell people all the time with these things, you're not going to see what your habits do now. You're going to see what they do in 10 years. In 10 years when you fucked up really badly. So NAC at a minimum, I like a minimum 1200.
That's what I do too. That's the lowest dose I put people on is 1200, man.
Yeah.
And then if there's dysfunction with hormone and stuff, it's double or triple that. Normally double for me, but I know Dill dabbles a little higher. I think I have put somebody on 36 before, actually.
Have you? Interesting.
Yeah,
I never went that high, actually.
Not super common, but I think I've done it once. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I have also done the combined approach with Dillon and I have talked about this before. NAC and glutathione.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that probably works really well, actually.
Well, and it's also like NAC is also a biofilm disruptor too. So there's some, you're not really getting that from the injectable glutathione. So there's a bunch of benefits to it, outside of, like just that function of it, let's say.
Yep.
All right. Who's up? I like that one. That's a really good one.
That was a good one. I'm going to go with one. Braeden might like this one.
Why won't I like this one?
Well, because it's a heart health ingredient.
Oh.
And I think specifically right now, this is probably a real good one based on some of the things we're seeing and why that potentially could be. So that's nattokinase.
Yes.
Yes.
Real good, which is in vitamin K, MK7, I think it is.
Yeah.
In that unique menaquine, but you can't, there's not much of it in there. And I think, again, talking to people that are enhanced or just pushing their body very, 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 very hard, I think that having the, the enzyme in there that breaks down blood clots is just a really good insurance policy, and it's also good for a few other things too. So I think that would probably be the one that I would go with. And it's very also cost effective.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. That's a good one.
Because
I heard it from Dante. The first place I heard it from was Dante. Talk about this.
Yeah. I actually came across this like a long time ago. And
so did I.
I find that it works well, actually, and I've been getting people to use this supplement a lot too in enhancements. It's called serapeptase.
I was just going to say
very,
very similar with the effects on fibrinogen and stuff.
Yeah, but it's a systematic enzyme, so it also helps with inflammation at like the cellular level. Which, what are you doing when you're pushing AAS and overtraining almost on purpose, and like that's exactly what you're doing. So the combination, and I think there now is actually combination products that have like a blend of serapeptase and nattokinase, because they do work synergistically.
I want to find that because I didn't know there was a
Doctor's Best makes one for sure.
Yeah,
That's
they do.
dope.
Yep. Do you have a dose for either? Or at least recommended?
Nattokinase. I'll look right now. Actually, nattokinase
2000 CFU AM.
CFU is the denomination, and serapeptase is 120,000.
I have it. I'm laughing because we always talk about how our minds similarly work the same, and you literally named two.
This is going to be his next one.
Two of the supplements I use for serapeptase.
Yeah.
Cool. I never actually implemented them, so I'm actually, because I'm talking with you actually recently about serapeptase, and I've seen it mentioned a few times in your protocols when we've gone over some things, and I've always wanted to ask, so now I know.
Yeah,
I'll tell you why. Oh, go ahead, Dill.
I was just gonna say also, I actually figured out how powerful that was through my work with autoimmune clients, specifically MS and specifically Crohn's. Those two, serapeptase is like a huge game changer. And I was like, okay, now I kind of understand potentially what this is doing. And although the sort of the effect, let's say, and I'm air quoting that, isn't going to be as big in like a healthy person, but it's going to be eliciting a lot of the same effects, right? So that's very, very good to know. And it works well clinically. So it's like, okay, it works in the field. It's studied, good ingredient.
Yeah. So I was going to say that I actually came across nattokinase in 2018. I know I mentioned to you guys before, some of the supplements that I kind of wanted to talk about were stuff that I researched because of necessity for myself. So when I got out of the hospital with my heart issue, I was actually on blood thinners because part of my issue when my heart shit blew up and all the wildness happened, I actually had a blood clot that formed between the split in my aorta. And I was on IV drip, blood thinners and stuff to disintegrate it and whatnot. And then when I left the hospital, I was on warfarin, which is a prescription blood thinner. And I did not want to be on all these scripts long term. So that's when I kind of hit the research button, and I was obviously down and out. I had a smaller roster at that point in time. So all I was doing was literally researching. That's where I came across Arjuna. That's where I came across all these different cool supplements like for ejection fraction and stuff. But nattokinase was one I was like, man, I wonder if I could literally stop taking my warfarin and hammer nattokinase and have a good benefit. And that is exactly what I eventually did. And you know what I mean? But then you look at other things it does too, right? Like in terms of yes, it has the effect on the fibrinolytic effects with fibrin and stuff decreasing. So kind of what I'm going with that is fibrin is actually what is going to cause the clotting in the blood, right? So beyond that, it's going to have plaque buildup regression capabilities. It's going to have effects on the lipid profile. So it's literally going to cover all of these boxes that as an enhanced bodybuilder, what do we want to take care of? Well, basically everything this fucking drug is doing. So put it in your regime. You know what I mean? Like, especially if you're taking drugs that are known to drive up red blood cell count, which most PEs are, but very heavy ones. So something like boldenone or like equipoise, right? I think this is kind of a no-brainer. So yeah, it's so good. I'm glad you mentioned that, Dill. Even the serapeptase is unreal. Did you mention a dosage for serapeptase? I think we're probably pretty similar.
Yeah, it's 120,000 SU.
Yeah, so I've used it at 240 a lot too.
Yep.
And I know there's lots of studies show the 242, but I think 120 is a great, like, I think
Maintenance.
that's where you'd want it at the lowest.
If I was working with autoimmune, I would crank that up 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I think they actually come mostly at 120,000 IU pills,
Yeah.
right? So it's just 1 a day type thing.
Interesting. I might have to give it a go with some people if I'm seeing inflammation cases.
Serapeptase is really cool too, especially for bodybuilders because of what it does with scar tissue, right? Like, we're pinning ourselves all the time, and that proteolytic enzyme and the systemic enzyme, like Dillon's talking about, that's going to help break down that fibrinogen, which is what forms every time you put a needle in yourself. Like, sure, okay, you can't just start hammering serapeptase and all the scar tissue in you is going to disappear. It's not really like that. But I think as a maintenance, to take Dillon's words, a maintenance dosage, taking like 120,000 IUs daily when you're a guy who's pinning frequently, probably will decrease the amount of scar tissue buildup you actually get from those pins.
Agreed.
My turn. Braden's turn. Braeden, do you want?
I'm easy with whatever, man. I got one I think I want to speak to that is
I got a few, and I think you might take it. So
you named a couple already in the supplement that I was going to speak to. Let me dive into CoQ10 or ubiquinol. When I think like overall heart health, this is one that I think cannot be left out of the equation. Just because, again, there's so much beneficial studies and literature on what it actually does and what it can provide us. I wrote down 2 or 3 things here to speak to that is just pretty cool that I pulled out of a study. But overall, like, the biggest things it's going to do, right, is going to significant increase in HDL and an improvement in overall LDL to HDL ratios. It's going to reduce inflammation by interleukin 1 and 6, IL-1 and 6, right? Big benefits to vasodilation, angiotensin effects, aldosterone reducing, right? It's scavenging of reactive oxygen species, or like ROSs. So there's just so many different things that this supplement realistically can do for us. That's going to have blood pressure improvements, overall cardiac improvements. So like the study stuff I was talking about, it's literally shown to be to show hypertrophic cardiomyopathy reduction at 200 milligrams a day. It decreases septal thickness and posterior wall thickness. So it actually directly impacts the heart of the wall of the heart. It showed there was higher survival of mice with myocarditis, which we talk about COVID and everything kind of going on around that right now. Myocarditis is a big thing, right? You supplement with CoQ10, and I'm sure you guys have probably all seen some of these supplemental protocols for if you get the virus. Well, this is one that's probably on there because of that. Antiarrhythmic effects in those that have arrhythmias. So the one thing that I wanted to say that I thought was super cool that I pulled out of one of these studies was there was a study with 49 patients, and they were assigned to groups after CPR resuscitation following cardiac arrest. So basically they were pretty much out and then were brought back to life. They took these patients, and half of them were put on just hypothermia, which is actually what I went through when I had my issue. They put me on brain cooling and basically put you in a hypothermic state to help shrink the brain and help things heal. And then the other group was put on hypothermia plus CoQ10. The 3-month survival rate post this happening, the CoQ10 group was 68%. The non-CoQ10 group was 29%, right? So like that's a drastic change. And the only thing they've taken is this huge breakthrough medical measure of hypothermia. And all they've done is add CoQ10 on that, and it increased survival rate by literally 40%, which is insane, because you know what I mean? And then I go back to this and I'm like, well, how come my doctors weren't recommending I take CoQ10 when I was, you know what I mean? Like that's literally what comes to my mind. But like, if I just read this in a study, well, why aren't you doing this with people? Like, you could be saving people's lives, right? So, I mean, it's one of those things that we talk about statins and trying to avoid them as much as we can. Well, there's things we can put into place in the meantime that are really going to have a super, super high benefit. And if you combine ubiquinol or CoQ10 with L-carnitine, the two of them systemically together work incredible. And realistically, like for the ubiquinol or the CoQ10, you just need 100 to 200 milligrams daily. Obviously, like I said, this is one that I like a little bit more. I like to shoot around that 200 milligram mark daily, and I see lots of good things come from it. So yeah, I think if you're cranking gear, this is something you probably should be on.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with something that's also cardioprotective. Kind of leads me right into it. You talked about angiotensin, and I think this has been the biggest one that's probably come up within the past few years.
I know where you're going.
Telmisartan.
Yeah.
It's not over the counter. You can get it on All Day Chemist though, for a majority of people.
Not in Canada, unfortunately.
Yeah. Dillon actually, I remember telling Dillon to get things on All Day Chemist one time, and he said it's not available, and I felt so disappointed in that.
We can't even use All Day Chemist, man. It's actually a joke.
That's ridiculous. So I think this has been it's probably been a lifesaver for a lot of people. Man, we're talking about I think every person on PEDs should probably be taking it. No doubt. I think just as a protective measure, take 20 to 40 milligrams, depending on your size, is a great place to start. And depending on how your blood pressure reads, it's an angiotensin 2. It's an ARB. So it takes away that substance that's going to be able to constrict your blood vessels, and it blocks
the uptake of the angiotensin.
Yeah. So you're more thinking than you're more into this than I am. I just kind of learn a little bit. But overall, lowering blood pressure, that's going to it's going to be great for you. The more blood flow you can have and everything, the less likely you are to get any sort of clots, which is why a lot of people end up having usually increased blood pressure causes those very greatly. I'm a big fan of this. I use it, like I said, as a protective measure for a lot of people within that. So, if we could prevent vasoconstriction in a lot of these guys and keep blood flow going, it's obviously going to be good for your heart. It's going to be good for your brain too, as well. So being able to supply both those with the proper amount of blood that they need and not keep your heart working as hard as possible. The more efficient you can make your heart work, as Braeden knows, probably the better. So being able to take this, it's not too difficult, at least in the United States, then to get, where a majority of people who listen to this are. So if you're Canadian, I'm sorry. I know I have 2 Canadian guys on.
Don't be sorry. All you got to do is give your doctor every sign of a heart attack, tell them you got fucking family history of high blood pressure disease, and walk in there and tell them you'd like to maintenance dose to tell them to start.
So I'm a big fan. So I'm a big fan of that. I also see people hold a ton of water from, blood pressure, increased blood pressure and things like that and stuff. So it can change the look of how you do look. Like you're able to get more blood flow, you're able to get better hydrated, and everything just goes properly better. So I keep within dosage of 20 to 40. I don't know what you guys do with this or what you guys have seen, but you guys can probably speak better to it than I can because I don't have any experience in running it myself. But I
can speak to some anecdotes. So I actually requested to be switched because I was on an ACE inhibitor before, Perindopril.
Yep.
Just due to my heart issues. And when so my cardiologist pretty much was hell bent on me staying on Perindopril. But the problem there was like, I'm not cranking. I don't crank, right? I just take TRT, and I mean, my stuff is always in check. My blood pressure is low. Like when I say low, it sits like 115 over 65, like in that area, like a good blood pressure, right? Not like low, but it was low for a while. And Perindopril and these things were driving my blood pressure too low. So I'd go to stand up from this chair and like I'd be lightheaded. That's not fun to walk around and move like that all day. Not to mention, like, if your blood pressure is crazy low like that, getting a pump in the gym is really hard and shit, right? It's just like, there's lots of different things. So I went to my family doctor and I just requested, I said, hey man, do you mind if I switch off Perindopril or just ACE inhibitor in general to like an angiotensin receptor blocker? And he was like, yeah, like, do you have any recommendations? And I literally was like, I would like to go on telmisartan. He was like, I love it. And I was like, oh, you know lots about it. He was like, well, it's generally what I opt for first for people, because it's super mild in the sense that it won't push your blood pressure too low. It will just keep it in a really healthy range. And then obviously I kind of went down, had a really good conversation with him about it, about the other effects and like the renal protective properties and stuff like that. But no, it's, if there was one drug that was literally made for fucking bodybuilders, it's telmisartan. You know what I mean? Like, it literally protects everything we want it to. And yeah, for me, I do 40 milligrams a day, and it's awesome. I take it at the same time every morning as soon as I wake up, and it's great. I love it.
That's why I did it. I think it's obviously you got to protect your kidneys. I think it's the one thing that stops. I honestly think it's the one thing that I've been seeing, at least I don't know about you guys, but I've been observing over some of these bodybuilders that are talking about health issues now. Kidney issues are the one thing that's getting in people's way. And when you really push hard and when you start to use, and I think a lot of programs, and I'm not trying to talk shit on people improperly programming people, but when a lot of people improperly don't get people dieted and they start to rely on diuretics, you're really going to fuck with your renal system. And some of those things are irreversible. In terms of getting EGFR back up. Like,
well, man, we just had a death recently in the industry that was related to, it was a heart death, but it would basically stemmed from kidney. And again, I might be speculating here a little bit, but Boston Lloyd, he had crazy kidney issues for a long period of time, was supposed to go on dialysis, refused to, tried to deal with stuff in kind of his own way, and then he ended up dying from heart failure, right? So I mean, the two definitely go hand in hand. So if you're protecting one or protecting the other, you're definitely doing yourself a favor on both ends.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. My mentor, one of my mentors and friend, really close friend, Dr. Dwayne Jackson, he actually had his kidney replaced for these same issues, you know, and he was lucky. He played when he was younger, and he's very educated, so he just made his own, you know, and like that was that era kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you know, he said, like, you know, he talks about it now. He's like, man, you know, it's crazy. Like, he had to go through dialysis and a whole bunch of stuff, and he's doing real well. But it's, you know, he wishes he would have taken a little bit closer look at these things. That way, that he helps bodybuilders look at things now.
Yeah. So I feel like
Who's up?
How many do you want to go? Do you want to go one more round?
One more round. Let's do
one more round.
I'm good.
I feel like
I'm
Dillon,
good. Keep rolling. I gotta get through a process of elimination now. The ones I wanted to say.
I feel like Dillon's got something on hand because we asked for one more. Dillon came up with something because he was looking at his computer. So I know Dillon's got something on tap here that would kind of.
Yeah, I do. It's one of my favorite supplements, which I program basically to whoever will take it, which is black seed oil. I think, you know, and it's funny. I actually found this out, let's say, through history, not through supplement study. It was interesting because, like, they've been using this to heal skin issues, bronchial issues, antiviral stuff, like actual psoriasis on the external on the skin. You know, in like ancient Egypt, King Tut had like black seeds found in some areas of his tomb.
You're saying black seeds? Black seeds?
Yep, black seeds.
Okay.
Yeah. Black seeds or black seed oil. Like, I don't care. It's because you can get the actual seed. It's just then you have to, it's a dietary thing. You'd have to include it in a smoothie or food, kind of like chia, like you would chia.
Yeah.
So I prefer the oil or oil caps. Like, you
Okay.
can get like supplemental caps. That's the ones I take. Just like an oil. There's studied uses for it for asthma, hay fever and allergies, diabetes, high blood pressure, eczema, weight loss, menstrual cramps, and blood sugar. And it's also an antihistamine. So I use it in functional cases because it covers actually quite a few bases, and it also is really good for general pop. And it's, for the benefits, to me, one of the best supplements you could take because it's very cost effective. You know, like we're talking.
I was about to ask. That was my question.
Like, and about 2 grams a day is where 2 to 3 grams a day is what I try to get.
I have a question for you on that. You go 2 grams of the oil or 2 grams of actual black seed?
Oh, so if I was going on more like 2 grams of the oil, like I want 2 grams of the extract, either in a gel cap or the oil. If you're going seeds, basically as much as you can put, because seeds are cheap. You'll get like a I don't know, like a pound bag for like $2.
Yeah, I had I
You
have some of my clients. I have some of my clients use the actual seeds, and I put them in again to put them in a coffee grinder, grind them up, and then
I've
sprinkle like 5 grams on their rice meals through the day.
You know why I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this,
or
you
in
know
a
why I like this
smoothie and stuff.
episode? You know why I like this episode? Because there's about 4 different supplements that I could see applied right to my clients right now, and I have not thought about using them. And this is one.
Mhm.
Yeah, like all the benefits I listed, Anthony, those are the ones that aren't anecdotal. Those are studied, and I've seen it too. But like I think there's some other things that's good for too. I think it's real good for. I think it's a potential like antibacterial, antiviral. It's a really cheap way. I find it useful because it's so cost effective, and where I'm from, it's like not like a very wealthy, let's say area, so it's a really good use that covers a lot of benefits and across multiple symptoms, let's say.
So 2 grams is your dose?
Yeah, 2 to 3 is a real good start.
Writing that down. All right, Braeden, give us your last one.
Oh man. Well, like I think there's some things we should mention, maybe not dive into though, right? Like some typical standard supplements that should be, in my opinion, in every single person's protocol if you're on gear. So like we're talking vitamin K2, right? That like if you're taking supplements or gear period, you should be on vitamin K2. Citrus bergamot or just bergamot, again, you should be taking that for lipids, right? Like those, like we could dive into them, we could talk about them, but I mean, just get them and put them in your protocols, period. Astragalus or astragalus root, same thing, right? Kidney function, that should be in there. You go from there, you got NAC, you got those guys that we talked about, TUDCA, like those should be in your protocol if you're taking gear. I have no doubt about it. And if you're taking vitamin K2, obviously vitamin D has to be alongside vitamin K2. So
And super
another
dose
one,
vitamin D, super dose it. I hate
100%. Well, do you remember, you might have seen it, like our mentor Austin posted a study and there was 10 people tested. This comes off the top of my head because I found this super interesting. You talk about vitamin D, 10 people got tested to figure out what dosage of vitamin D actually took them to stable levels in the blood that were optimal. And 3 people of the 10 needed 10,000. Then there was 2 people that needed like 15,000 and 1 person needed 20,000, I believe it was. So right there, you're looking at 6 of 10 people needed 10,000 plus just to get ideal levels of vitamin D in their blood.
And
right?
I normally find that people in the winter, and we're talking about 2 places that normally don't get much light in the winter times and things like that, you got to think you're going to need more than 10,000. You're going to need more.
So if you're us and if you're a Canadian listener to this, you should have that in there 100%. And I would argue probably at 5, 10, 15,000 IUs.
Yep. I put it in high. I put in like 15 to start at least.
Yeah. I take 20,000 IUs. I take 20,000 IUs a day myself.
Yep. I take about 10.
But yeah, so one of the ones that I think is important, and you actually mentioned this, and I really like this supplement. There's some conflicting studies with it in terms of like liver health and stuff like that, but we don't have to go down that road. I think if you're taking care of your liver, it's not necessarily overly concerning, but red rice yeast. Red rice yeast itself is extremely beneficial for lowering LDL and total cholesterol and triglycerides, which it's actually been shown to lower LDL by up to 21 to 30%. So that's a pretty drastic lowering, right? If you have big issues with that, it's going to take care of that or help take care of that. And again, some people might not be able to handle it as much because it's been said it can be liver toxic with some people. It contains lovastatin though, which basically prevents the body from making cholesterol. And it's very, very similar in its makeup to an actual stat drug called Mecacor, I believe it is, or Mevacor, made by Merck. So that's actually literally a pharmaceutical statin that you would be prescribed if you had hyperlipidemia or some sort of lipid dysfunction. And there's all these drastic side effects with those. Now you can take it from a natural supplement like red rice yeast and get some of the same benefits, right? I did jot down the MOA here. So it basically inhibits HMG-CoA reductase, which is basically the rate controlling enzyme of cholesterol synthesis. So like we said, it contains levostatin, which prevents the body from making cholesterol. So you're literally putting a supplement into your body that's going to downregulate the production of bad cholesterols like LDL and your triglycerides and stuff like that. So one of the things you have to make sure, though, if you're using this, you have to make sure it's high in monocolin K. It has to be high in monocolin K, and you kind of got to look for ones that have the extracts named and kind of what's in there. So I would say dosing that at like 1200 to 4800 mgs a day, making sure there's anywhere from like 4.8 to 24 milligrams of that monocolin K, and you're in a pretty good spot.
FYI, I think it's in Morpho Prime.
Yeah,
It's in Morpho Prime.
and I guarantee
that
you,
Morpho Prime at 600 milligrams.
I guarantee you that Ben, I know he sources high quality. I think it's Ben that runs Morphogen, right? Yeah, he sources high quality stuff. So I guarantee you the standardized extract there is probably high in monocolin K for sure.
Yeah. Yep. So my last one is going to be the same kind of thing as not over the counter, but you can find it on over the chemist too. And I believe this is a big one that I use, makes a process efficient. And I think the one thing that most guys do struggle with is they like to push rice and these simple carbs really, really high throughout these times. If insulin is not in outside of that, what's the one thing that can help make that process more efficient when it comes down to beta cell sensitivity and decreasing inflammation if you are having any sort of insulin resistance? Metformin.
I was just going to say, does it start with an M?
Does it start with an M? You want to play Wheel of Fortune? We'll see who fills the letters first. Metformin, man, I've used this in natural athletes. I've used this in PD athletes. This is a great product, just in general. It's a great supplement to add in if people can afford it, if people can get it. I think it's if you're seeing high blood glucose levels, obviously you got to address those through lifestyle habits, but this can if you're dealing with insulin levels, where I've seen people have insulin levels, and I'm not just talking about bodybuilders here, but I've seen people have insulin levels of like 25 plus. This is something where you would definitely want to use it if you can get it.
Or also if like a female's androgen dominant or PCOS.
Yes,
phenomenal.
Absolutely. Yep. Phenomenal product for that. The effects I've seen over just decreasing inflammation over people and how people look too just changes when I have people take this compared to not, because I have some anecdotal with that. And I've seen insulin go down within like 3 months, go down from like a 25 to like a 12. So to cut it in half on 500 milligrams of metformin a day is a pretty big deal. That's a lot of insulin. Difference, especially when you're looking at fasted levels. So being able to make that beta, what it does is it really acts on the beta cell sensitivity. So your beta cells keep blowing out insulin, and eventually your pancreas gets fucking tired of you and says, fuck you for eating so much food and eating or whatever, or having so much stress. And eventually the beta cells start to slow down the process in general. So this will help also alleviate, give more sensitivity to the beta cells to respond better to your intake of food. It will also just allow better uptake once you get more sensitive to that, which overall would just make the process a lot better for you. And the amount of things that we have all seen from high blood glucose levels, you're looking at increased inflammation. You're looking at increase in cardiovascular disease there, which we are trying to prevent now. I think it's the biggest prevention that we need in this industry, to truly be honest right now. And I think you're able to add in, I think every bodybuilder should probably have in metformin and telmisartan if you can. That's just my opinion. I plug it in for every single, if someone says they want to be a bodybuilder, I plug these two things in because it's going to at least give us a nice structure of protection there when it comes down to these things, and being as preventative as possible with getting ahead of the schedule and getting ahead of things is probably the most important. I've been very lucky to start out with guys who are more so doing first exposure rather than more experienced guys, but even more experienced guys taking this will probably benefit directly from this use pretty quickly. So 500 milligrams, roughly where I go. You're going to notice some GI distress if you start taking it. Just be aware that that is normal. I've seen it, every single person that's taken it. Usually the first week is never fun for a lot of people, just GI wise. But after that, you're really gonna notice the benefits of it.
It's because it actually alters the gut microbiome a little bit,
Yep.
right?
It's kind of like berberine. Like if you if you super high dose berberine, that's why there's always this battle over what to take here, berberine or metformin, and because they both
don't take them within
don't take them. No, you can use them together,
take them
but they're
within a few
not
hours
good.
of each other.
Yeah, make sure. I always have people take like berberine in the day or in the morning, and then I'll have, or metformin in the morning, and then I'll do the opposite, berberine or something like that. So always make sure to keep those definitely separate.
I'm very same with that. I either dose metformin first thing in the morning or last thing before bed.
Yep.
I've actually found too that actually I like starting people at 500, but I prefer driving it up to, honestly, if somebody can handle it, 1,000 or even 1.5 grams.
I've seen 1,000. That's the case that I did, the 25 down to 12. We did get up to 1,000 per day at one point.
I've taken myself up to 3 grams.
Really? That's
just to play around. I just wanted to see if, because I didn't really get any gut dysfunction from 500 or 1,000, and I was like, fuck, I just want to see if this is actually going to cause me any gut dysfunction at all. I got some at 3 for sure, but it honestly, man, it made improvements all the way across the board. Like 500 does for sure, and that's where I start people. I like to, if I can take somebody to 1,000, though, I prefer them at 1,000. I feel it definitely does its job a little bit better, but there's nothing against like a girl, a younger or a smaller female. For sure, 500 is adequate, but once you get with your bigger guys, I think honestly 1,000 is.
This is a tool I want to implement next off season. Obviously, there's going to be some factors in where I would probably implement this in, but I wish towards the end of my off season, like the last 5-6 months of my off season, I would have implemented this in, because I was having some insulin resistance issues a little bit, like onset. I could see them. So if I was able to,
here's the other thing.
Yeah.
The other thing too is like, it's also not magic for that, right? Like berberine and metformin have went head to head in a lot of studies, and berberine's shown to be like as effective at managing blood glucose. So like you can't just, and you mentioned this when you first started talking about it, you can't just sit there and think you have insulin sensitivity issues, so you're just going to drop metformin in, because I've seen it do nothing for people's metformin.
Yep.
Or sorry, for people's blood glucose, right? Like I've literally, because it's the lifestyle habits, it's the stress. You can't out supplement somebody who's chronically stressed. If you're stressed out your ass all the time and you just think taking 500 milligrams a day of metformin is going to fix your blood glucose, sorry, you're going to see it do nothing.
Yep. You're not going to see it. And the diet changes. You obviously have to take a different approach with this, with diet changes. Obviously I was doing a very carb cycle approach with this person that I did it with. So you have to be able to give up your ways. And it's probably something that would definitely be useful in more of a health phase too here. Obviously overall, I think it'd be great, but when you're able to decrease food and lower food, then hit the insulin, then hit it to attack that beta cell sensitivity, would be absolutely money. But you're right. It's always everything that we say, besides some of these like heart supplements directly, a lot of these things can really be prevented by taking care of yourself. And I feel like a lot of people are very reckless with, number one, drug use, and number two, lifestyle choices. Those two things are the biggest things. If you want to take these supplements and continue to pound drugs, good luck. It's the same thing as we just discussed. Nothing's gonna happen. It might delay the process, but like I said, you're probably gonna feel this 10 years down the line, no matter what.
Yeah.
So you need to change. People need to change their ways that they approach drug use in general in this industry. And it really starts with coaches like us that are learning safe use models and things, but even safe use models doesn't really matter. I think that's the thing that we could get down to, right? Eventually you're going to have, we talked about this before, you're eventually going to have to escalate that dose, right?
Yep.
And eventually it's going to get to a dose that's probably not considered healthy and safe use. But if you want to become the best, you can at least put these preventative measures in to start before you even get there. So hopefully this.
And I do think, and stemming off that, I think that's, we don't have to go down a rabbit hole here, but I think that's part of the problem why we're seeing so much stuff happen now. It's not that you can't get to levels that are, you can't take your dosage to levels that you're going to need to really do super physiological things and turn into a freak if you're trying to be a bodybuilder. But think a lot of these guys who are passing, and rest in peace to them, they just didn't go that route, right? Like they cranked hard early for many years, and then they just have to crank harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. Like there is a point of no return where you've basically, like, you've done so much damage via inflammation on your body for so long that it takes one thing, and we don't need to get into that. I think we briefly talked about that to kind of set things off, but realistically, like if you follow the approach of safe practice early on, and early exposures are mediated through the sense that you're slowly bringing things up and slowly we're titrating to peak doses, and you're not just progressively overloading your fucking gear like you overload food and shit, you know what I mean?
Yep.
You're gonna be okay. And like, yeah, at the end of the day, I'm not saying there is no risk, but at least you're taking away a lot of the risk early on, so that when you do have to get to that point where you're pushing things hard and it's a little less safe, you're not doing that for fucking 15 years. You're doing that for a few years. And if you don't get that goal accomplished, well, at that point, then you have a conversation with yourself and you say, hey, now it's probably time to pull myself out of this, because I have been doing this really hard for a long time, and a long time maybe being that 3, 4, 5 years, right? But the 10 years preceding that, you were not being an animal with things, and you weren't pushing things very hard, right? Because it also becomes tough as a coach, right? You get these young kids coming to you, and maybe they're, I guess I shouldn't call them kids, like, but I was going to say like a 25-year-old who's been on gear for 5 years, and he's been running 1.5 grams every cycle for the last 5 years. Well, like, what do you do there? You know what I mean? Am I going to take him off an exposure for 6 months and then bring him on to 200 and think he's going to progress? No, right? So these people shoot themselves in the foot a lot with that. And it's just like, go back to that model we talk about here, and do things the right way. Be patient. Give yourself 10 years to be in the industry, and then 10 years to bodybuild. We have this fucking obsession with wanting things now and tomorrow, and it's like, that's not bodybuilding. You know what I mean? Like, that's literally just wanting a shortcut to become a pro. And bodybuilding is not about that. Bodybuilding is literally putting in the work to get something cool out of your fucking physique.
Yeah. I also want to say, if before Dylan mentions something, if your gear costs more than your supplements, you might be doing something wrong. Might be doing
100%.
Yeah, your health supplements. I spend at least $300 a month on supplements. Like,
and I used to make my clients send me pictures of receipts. I'm not joking.
Yeah,
I made my clients send me pictures of receipts for all the health supplements I wanted them on before I would ever send them a cycle. That's how important this shit is. Like, obviously I don't do that anymore, because I got to the point I felt like it was extreme micromanagement. But like, at the same time, I don't know if I should ever apologize for caring about somebody's health more than they might.
Never.
You know what I mean? So, and I have had people, they wouldn't send me the receipts, and I'm like, well, you ain't getting a fucking cycle. Sorry.
Dylan, any last words?
All right, Dill, you're up, my man. Put the nail in the coffin here.
I'm up. Well, I don't know. It's really good. We had a lot of informative stuff. Metformin, Telmisartan, 2 huge additions there. I think that was real happy you guys brought up. I'm right on board with that. You know, we had a lot of good information here, and I think that we just need to get. So I don't know. So can I ask you a question, Braeden? What do you think about this? So just because of your scenario, it gave me a question. You know, you take that 25-year-old bodybuilder who's been running some PEDs, and, you know, like, maybe not, I wouldn't even want to call it abuse, but like, definitely, you know, a little bit more than what you'd like to see at that age, let's say, you know, so 1.5 to 2 grams per cycle. And you now take them, you get their health, you pull them down to like a TRT dose, like an actual TRT dose, you get them real healthy, get them reestablished with just training hard with just TRT, trying to drive food up. And 1.5 years later, or a year, or I don't know, 6 months, as long as you can push the person, you know, basically, depending on their competitive goals. And you reintroduce PEDs, you know, in like a safe use progressive model with exposure starting at literally 150 milligrams. And do you think that provides no results? Because I know that is like a
no, I don't.
Like, oh, you used X amount last time, so then this time that much isn't going to work. And you have more experience in the actual uses of this, but like on the literature end, that makes no sense at all to me.
It doesn't. I mean, I think from the side of hypothetically, if you take somebody off a cycle of 2.5 grams, and they've been doing that for 3, 4, 5 years, and you give them a 12-week break from that cycle, and then you go back at a cycle with 300 milligram test dosage and 100 milligrams of mast, they're not going to respond. But if you do what you said, you take them, you don't expose them to anything beyond replacement therapy levels for 6 to 12 months.
I see.
You can potentially use things like L-carnitine to drive androgen receptor uptake, right? And now you put in something like maybe 300 milligrams plus a little bit of mast or some primo or something. Yeah, they're going to respond. Like your androgen receptors don't just stop working, but I think it becomes different the longer that exposure has been drilled in. You know what I mean? Like if somebody's been doing this for 10 years and they've been doing 2 to 4 grams a fucking cycle, man, I would find it anecdotally really tough to say that they're probably going to respond to 300-400 milligrams of gear 10 years down the line. But I mean, I have Tyler, man, is somebody who, he didn't do nothing disgustingly crazy and wasn't running grams of gear back in the day, but he definitely wasn't doing things right at all. And he knows that, and he'll openly admit that. He was eating anadrols and shit, you know what I mean? Like just fucking benching hard, eating cheeseburgers, and he trained always hard, but he realistically didn't have a methodical approach to things. And he had a coach that was helping him that didn't really know what he was doing. And then all of a sudden we link up and we get him tighter. We focus on his bloods, and we don't have to do crazy exposures to get him to where we got him over the, like I posted a picture the other day, right? And that's a prime example of that. It's just doing things right. And I feel like there's a lot of these people that do think they're lost, in the sense that they've been cranking so hard for so long that they just can't do it. And it's like, well, you can, you just got to be willing to be mentally tough enough to take enough time off to get results from an exposure when you come back that aren't asinine in terms of dosages. Now, again, I mean, you have somebody that's 275 pounds. Well, they're probably going to need, and like you said, they're a high national level bodybuilder who's on the cusp of being a pro. And I have a couple guys that are here, and like you and I had this conversation, Dillon, regarding like Travis and stuff, right? Like there is a point where you have to be very smart with application of drugs still, but these guys are not going to be running a 400 milligram test cycle and 100 milligrams of mast and 100 milligrams of primo and getting the same out of it of a guy that like has only been exposed to 2 cycles and he's sitting there at 210 pounds, right? So
this makes a lot of sense to me. Now, I do want to clarify, because in the models that I'm going to credit Victor so I don't end up on his bad side here, but you know, learning.
He blocked everyone, so it's fine. He's blocked everyone in the world. So
and I'll just say this: I've never actually seen Victor's safer use model. I've never seen it, so I don't even know what it looks like. So I'm curious.
The idea is like you're on the volume dial. So what you said, because you said like, oh, a national level bodybuilder, 275. I'm fine with the volume dial being turned up. But over time, why does it have to start at 10? So like even a guy like Travis, I understand that the total exposure is going to end up at a place where, you know, it's probably not what you were just describing for a second, yes. You know, like you would. But why does it have, you know, like, and why do we have to go to 600 primo in the industry right away? Because like that's
we don't.
I'm like, what? You know, okay, well, you basically said the same thing as me then.
I more so am thinking from the sense of where are you starting your exposure? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
if you're going to a total exposure of 2 grams, but your first exposure of that is 200 milligrams or 300 milligrams, how big are your jumps going to have to be, and how frequently are you going to have to bump that? You know what I mean? Makes Whereas sense. If you start potentially, and again, I don't want to make myself sound dangerous here, you know what I mean? That's not a very, very safe use model that I utilize. But again, like there's starting a guy that's that big and 275 pounds and making his first bump 100 milligrams when the total he's going to need is 1900 milligrams more than that across the next 4, 5, 6 months. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does. And we'll get into this maybe another thing, because I actually have some stuff to add to that, where my answer to you is like, yes, exactly what you're saying. And you're saying it's wrong. And I'm like, no, yeah. So, but it's too much to expand on. So
exactly. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but I think it all comes back to a safe use model, understanding why you're doing things, not putting, because I continue to see it. I continue to fucking see it today. The gentleman that I told you guys I'm going to be working with, we were talking about previous cycles from previous coaches. Okay, here was the cycle I ran, and it was asinine. It was fucking astronomically. It was astronomically disgusting. And then I was like, okay, so what did you start at? Oh, well, that's what I started at.
I got this printout and I started.
And then he says to me again, and then he was like, oh, and this is like currently in prep. This is what I'm supposed to be switching to. And I'm like, so you're telling me at the beginning of your prep, you wrote your entire cycle up? Yeah. It's like,
oh God,
where the fuck does the needs-based coaching come in? Because how do you know that you need tren at 6 weeks out? You know what I mean?
That's
like
garbage.
How do you know you even need tren? How do you know you even need halo testing? How do you know you even need
I don't have
you do that, you're trash.
But it's just like you should be able. Obviously we have predictions, right? And we have to be like, okay, we're gonna need these tools available. You don't have to tell the athlete that, right? Because they got to get the tools readily available. So when you implement them, they're implemented, right? But what says we need to implement it? Like have the tool available, but the tool doesn't need to be used. And if it does, how much does it really need to be used at that certain time? Because you can always
100%.
Because you can always escalate the dose. Like if you need to.
Well, and like I usually have conversations with people too, and just make sure that they do have accessibility to their gear beforehand, right? Like if I know it takes you 2 days to get something and I see your check-in, well, if I know it takes you 2 days to get something and I see your check-in and I add in 100 milligrams of NPP, well, I'm not going to be fucking butthurt the fact that you're starting your NPP 3 days from now. You know what I mean? Like, holy shit, you started your NPP 3 days from now. Did that just change everything? No, it's fine. Right? Like, it's just one of these things that, like, I don't know. It's so crazy, man, the shit that's coming out in terms of PDs and that kind of stuff, the way that I'm seeing things done, right? Like, okay, well, every drug is going to serve a different purpose in terms of what it's going to do to the physique. So if we need a little bit more fullness and we're on the tail end of a prep, but you're only scheduled in these fucking hardeners, quotation mark. Well, what do we drive that fullness with? Like, okay, well, I didn't tell you to buy Superdrol 16 weeks ago, but if I feel right now you might benefit from 5 milligrams of Superdrol or 10 milligrams of Superdrol, well, I'm going to tell you to take 5 or 10 milligrams of Superdrol. And then here's the other thing that drives me nuts, because we see it with diets, and I do it with diets too, especially on like peaks and stuff. I don't give a hard diet. Here's your peak week diet, but I'll give a rough outline so they know what foods to have prepared and stuff like you're saying. But here's the problem. If you do that with gear and then you decide to not use something, and you have a trigger happy person that you are dealing with, and you tell them you're not putting that drug in, but they saw that this drug was scheduled in at 300 milligrams on this week, and you tell them, nah, we're not doing that. Well, there are people who will fucking put it in regardless.
Yeah, or just be, I would say most people would be susceptible to negative emotion, because
straight up, exactly.
Sign up to with the coaching, and you say, here's what we're probably going to need. You view that as the map to winning. And then obviously, if you're doing these things, you want to win, you look at now he says, you're taking away things that were supposed to be tools to getting me to winning. I'm not going to like that.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas on the flip side,
because no one has an understanding of what these things do. And like, you might have a very good reason, health and or performance wise, not to incorporate it. It might be a perfectly smart play, but you're going to fight that negative emotion with the client.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And like on the flip side with food, well, a lot of people are so concerned about, oh, but I'm on prep, you know what I mean? But like, it's my last week. You want me to have that much? So like, if you are on the flip side of that equation and you tell them not to have that much food, and you tell them, oh, instead of 400 grams of rice with this meal, we're actually going to do 250 because you're pretty full. Well, they're not going to have a negative emotion like that, because it's probably going to be like, fuck, my coach is telling me I'm really full right now. The drugs are doing their job. The food up to this point has done their job. Whereas on the flip side, you start comparing that to the same scheduling of drugs, you don't get the same effect, and like neurologically, right? It's totally different, and they feel like they're missing out on something, or they should do that to give them the edge, and that's where things get sketchy. And then like you take that down to a further rabbit hole, and it's scary to even say, but I've seen it, and I don't know if you guys have, but I know other people that I speak with have, and it's like pre-scheduling of fucking diuretics, man.
Oh God, I've seen that too.
No,
It's scary.
we won't even touch on this because we're gonna go down a thread.
No, but that's scary, man, right? Because like you want to talk about one drug that can realistically really fuck you up and
Like I
kill
said,
you
it's gonna
kill
fuck
you
you
on
up.
show day. If you don't understand like those sodium potassium pumps and you don't understand things pretty well, and you're just gonna fucking tell somebody to take a week of aldactone and a little bit of injectable fucking Lasix or whatever, or like Dizide, like that's scary business, man. Scary business, and people need to get the fuck away from that.
Yep. Well, take your supplements. Take your
Yeah.
supplements. Like I said, your
100%.
supplement stack should be more than your gear stack.
Hey, one of the things we didn't talk about or speak to was curcumin, but I feel like that's a very important one that people should take
Oh,
too.
can we touch on it next episode? I gotta go eat.
No, we're done. I don't need to go into it, but I was just wanted to put it out there. So take
500
curcumin.
500 megs, or 4 to 500 megs twice per day. Do it.
Yep.
It's good for you.
Keep it away from training.
Yeah, keep it. Yeah, don't do knack or things like that pre-train, like pre or post training. But we appreciate you guys. This was a long episode, but we wanted to give you guys a bunch of education on these ones. We actually really enjoyed doing these educational episodes.
They're my favorite.
The nutrient timing one was it went off the rails. You guys supported us really heavily on that one. I think it almost got 300 downloads. So keep cooking, keep listening to guys, keep sharing the podcast out. And we keep seeing more and more stories keep coming out each time we release an episode. So keep showing that you guys are listening. I appreciate the Canada crowd because my followers and listeners in Canada keep going up. I don't know why. Might be these two dingleberries over here that are getting me all these followers. But I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. As per usual, if you guys did enjoy this episode and you are new, definitely go subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple or Spotify. Go follow the boys on Instagram. Go follow me on Instagram. If you tag us on Instagram, tag your boy because now it's a common thing. Now I keep getting tagged. So you guys are doing your jobs. So keep it up. We appreciate all the support you guys have. If you guys want to hear anything from us, all you got to do is DM us, really, to truly be honest, or DM me. I'm always on Instagram. So if you guys want to hear us do a certain topic on these educational episodes, we would gladly do it because we're always looking for feedback from our listeners. So look out for next week. It's going to be, I think it's a Fat Boys episode, if I believe.
Yeah, it is. It is.
We'll be chatting about nothing and something at the same time. We got a classic Herbie appearance here to cap our night here. And yeah, so we'll catch you guys in the next episode of the Ace of Spit podcast.
See you guys later.